Hi, for this discussion, I decided to do a video to talk about the core concept or idea that stuck out to me the most in the Hainsberry book, the chapter that we read. I thought it was so interesting. I loved it. I have it ordered on Amazon to help me out with my final project in this class on what actually is quality intellectual work, how to motivate students, and just really great ideas. One area that really stuck out to me was the section on Death to Delight, how to best motivate learning. So, in this section, it basically started out like just in brain function itself. What triggers that need to learn? It talked about like how this could be like the urgent need to learn. You use your background knowledge, what you already know. That's the fight or flight mechanism. It could be more of a social emotional need to learn how to function in your society, in your family. Or it could be more emotional. Like, what do you need to learn to move on, to become, more successful? What do I need to learn? Those are those brain triggers that trigger that response in the need to learn. And so, with that background knowledge, it also talked about more on the other end of the spectrum on how just the human need alone, the human need to learn comes from just that joy and delight factor in learning. What is motivating me to learn? This is where I brought it into students. How can we help? How can I help teacher candidates be able to develop lesson plans that motivate students for that need to learn in this? To find that joy, that delight. So, like, this was explained in this section as a child may feel just that confidence in being able to name like 50 bugs and know that that's important to them. It's building that confidence. They feel joy in that confidence that they have. Or it could be like a particular skill they might have. I kind of put this, like, kind of correlated it with myself. Like, I have a good sense of direction. It's easy for me to not use a map after I've been someplace once, where others, they might have to always refer to a map. Or it could be just that confidence building and the need to learn for more emotional, maybe having a quality to be able to empathize with people, relate to a higher power. So as that goes on with students, it helps us as we think about building that quality intellectual work in our lesson planning. What is that? So on the other end of the spectrum, it's that feeling right away that a child gets, that delight. They're identifying themselves. They're finding joy in the learning. And that is going to be the lasting power that stays with them. That knowledge is going to stay longer than it was described in this section too. And this really spoke to me. When you study for a test, when you're under that distress, you're trying to memorize facts, you're worried about your grade. So that distress actually causes that intellectual knowledge. The more you want to learn, it may go away. Right after you take the test, that knowledge is gone. When you recall things, maybe even from your own years in school, you might not remember exactly the knowledge behind it, but what brought you delight in that? Maybe it was a simple saying or something you thought was funny because it brought you that joy in that learning. So the way I would put this into action is I was thinking about how students need to be able to relate, to see themselves in their work, to identify with it, to be able to bring that quality intellectual work into a certain project or a lesson plan. I brought to mind when I was analyzing this, I started thinking about like a book that I recently read, which was Let the Children March. In this, I would put more of maybe like a third grade classroom, that age. This is all about the civil rights movement, but it's actually written in more of like a poetry um, form of writing. So I right away started thinking about this. How could I make this book show some quality intellectual work? And maybe just all about the use in a classroom with children that age. And then another book that I had read that actually goes kind of along with this, but it's more of a chapter book. So I thought as a teacher, I could be reading this to students as we worked with this book. And this, which also shows a different form of literature because it's a memoir, and this is Jackie Robinson's daughter, Sharon, who wrote a memoir, and this book is based about third, fourth grade. But I thought for third grade, second or third grade, as the facilitator, the teacher, I would be reading this book to them. And how would I make this book show that quality intellectual work? Well, besides like being able to tie in all parts of the curriculum with this, from social studies to the oil, the illustrator that used the oil painting in this, and to research and build and explain to students all about the civil rights movement. But to bring in that quality intellectual work, I thought about developing a project on having students use that inquiry to really take a look at their own community. What is going on in their community? In this book, it explained these were children that did the civil rights movement. How could they be a part of something to make a change? And I would build that into a project then where students, first of all, whole class start out, let's take a look at our community, as that ties into social studies, to literacy, to science, to language arts, all part. Brainstorm what's going on in our community. Have community leaders come in, research articles, look at media, bring in technology. And then as children start seeing different areas in their community, with them bringing this up, thinking, brainstorming, put them in groups of 4, and then using each student's skills in their motivation to learn. What would they be good at? Would they be better at the researching part of this? Would they be better at helping revise and write? But to be able to use this and what I've read about in our recent, in this Hanesberry section, would be able to actually see this come to life. To be able to have that confidence that they are being a part of a change and put this in their community, and have the plan develop where they could actually implement it. So that's where I'm kind of seeing this go, and where do I want to take this for my final project is this really, it really brings me to start thinking about how so many different lesson plans can be built to bring children that quality intellectual work in order for them to gain that confidence that that knowledge becomes a lasting power. So I hope to use all of this in a final project by developing a bunch of lesson plans over literature, and bringing in different books for a whole unit of how a potential teacher could use this in a classroom or one of my teacher candidates that I work with. Thanks for listening to my video. Once again, just love it. I hope kids can make the change, and there's so much in this. I can't wait to read the entire book. Thanks.